Welcome to EDTech Monday Uganda, brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation in partnership with the Innovation Village through the EDTech Lab. EDTech Monday Uganda is a platform to engage Uganda's EDTech community and other relevant stakeholders, including the government, the private sector, the donors, on the emerging topics of education and how technology can address these challenges. EDTech Monday is held once every month as we dissect the education sector, the future of education, and the available opportunities to grow the sector. In this episode, we explore the topic of enabling teachers to lead and innovate. Teachers are a vital backbone of the education system, and yet they face numerous challenges, from limited access to professional development opportunities and adequate remuneration, large class sizes, to mention but a few. Amid the pandemic, we saw examples of teachers stepping up in remarkable ways to keep learning going, but we also witnessed challenges with many not equipped to deliver the learning remotely. Joining me in the studio today are our expert panelists. We have Rosey, Sembatya, who is a teacher at Malaika Children's Mobile Library. We have Baguma, Filbert, who is the General Secretary at the Uganda National Teachers Union. And we have Shamim, Nirere, who is a transformational educator at Izere Education Center. Thank you so much, our guest, for joining us. And I want to start with you, Rosey. What has it been like in your experience as a teacher during this pandemic? In teaching young children, but also ensuring that learning goes on, and in the cases where it couldn't go on, what has been your experience like?
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you for hosting me here. I run a children's mobile library, but I'm also a teacher in a seed school in Kayunga called Bale SS. It has been very difficult for me to access my class in the rural school because my students don't have access to telephones, they don't have access to internet. So even when I try to send them work through friends, it has been terribly difficult for me to get feedback from them. Even when I try to send them stories, it has been very difficult to get any feedback from them because of some of those challenges. So Raymond, I'm a sad teacher because throughout this lockdown, it has been difficult to access my class. My children, I do not know what's going on. So I am a sad teacher, Raymond.
Shamim, you're also another teacher and you deal mostly with young children. What has been your experience during this pandemic?
My experience has been that children miss school, obviously. I've also seen the resilience teachers have exhibited. Personally, from my side, the second lockdown, at least parents were more prepared. My experience has been that actually children can actually concentrate. The ones who have access to technology, they can concentrate online if you manage the class to fit within their scheduled time. But then I've also seen instances where we've had children who have failed completely to attend our sessions, even when they were enrolled, even when we've brought into them, because they just can't get it, or they need support with their parents. So the experience has been mixed, where it has been successful and where it has really not been successful.
Filbert, you represent the teachers in UNATU, which is the lobby group for teachers, but also the union under which they operate. What are you hearing from teachers about their own experiences during this pandemic?
Thank you, Raymond. First of all, COVID-19 pandemic caught us off guard as a country. Because you recall on 18th March 2020, when the president addressed the nation on COVID-19 and gave a directive that all schools should have closed by 20th midday. The teachers were puzzled, the parents had just sent some of the learners to school, and the learners were also not knowing what was going to happen next. And we thought it was just a short break, because at that time we didn't have even a COVID-19 positive case. Now, as events unfolded, we realized it was going to take longer than we expected. Education was hit because the teaching learning process came to a standstill, including in the universities, because it's a few universities who had provisions for online learning. Now, this showed us that our planning had issues because we did not plan for the unknown, like COVID and any other emergency that may arise. So the teachers have been psychologically tortured because you know you are supposed to teach, you know the children are there suffering, but you cannot teach them. Even when initiatives were made and they were trying to see how they can use online, the tools are not there. Some learners come from families where there is not even a smartphone, leave alone the iPads, leave alone the laptops, but even a single smartphone does not exist there. Now, that left the teachers toolless. They could not do what they wanted to do. There was the will, but they could not do it. So it is a very big puzzle to the teachers.
Shamim, I want to concentrate, because I know that you have innovative ways in which you've been teaching young learners during this COVID-19. And in a way of sharing your experience, what can you tell other teachers about being innovative to be able to teach the learners during this pandemic, this lockdown, because it doesn't look like schools are opening anytime soon?
Thank you, Raymond. Last 2020 theme of Teachers Education Day was Teachers Leading in Crisis, Innovating for the Future. If I remember well, teachers have really indeed led in crisis. I have seen teachers get out of their way to deliver continuity of learning to their students and their learners. I have seen teachers use WhatsApp. There's a teacher colleague I know called Stella Maris. She uses WhatsApp and has been successful. She has innovated that. I have seen teachers buy their own gadgets where their schools have not provided it, and they have continued teaching. I have seen teachers are doing a great job innovating around this. What I have observed that technology has really helped in this pandemic, even though we have a huge divide of those who cannot really access the technology to continue learning, but technology has really been a blessing. I have seen teachers who put airtime on their phones and call every Monday. They send work, teachers are using Google Classrooms, they are using phone calls, they are using Zoom, they are using Google Meet. I've seen teachers innovate elsewhere. What I would advise is, first of all, we are passionate people. Most teachers are passionate people. So our passion is to see as our children studying. We even call them our children. So I would encourage teachers, look around you, see what you can. You don't have to use Zoom. You don't have to use Google Meet if you can't. You can use Google Classroom if the ones are not going to attend on internet. I've seen students who have paid for the gadgets, but internet really cuts them off. You can make a phone call and just let the passion be the fuel, because at the end of the day, indeed, we have seen that the passion is the fuel in these tough times, in a time where some parents still don't take teachers seriously, in a time where society sometimes still career shames teachers. I've seen teachers stand up to the challenges. So I would just encourage fellow teachers to still stand up to the challenges and look around you, see what can you do. Is it in your community?
Rosey, I want to come to you because Shamim talks about teaching, but from the learner's perspective, in the sense that teachers have done their part. But teachers also have bills to pay, and teachers have needs to cater to. How do you address this? Because the major payer of schools, the major payer of teachers is schools, and they are closed. How are teachers going to be able to earn, to make a living, to also be able to progress on their own careers?
Thank you, Raymond. I know that as teachers we are very creative, and even amidst this pandemic, we we have looked for different ways of enabling learning, though some have failed, but I know that we have looked for different ways to enable learning and to survive, even when schools are closed. What I would advise teachers to do is to look around them, like Shamim said, look around them and seek opportunities, because we need to be the examples to the other people, to our learners and to the people around us, to enable them see the opportunities, and through us seeing the opportunities and doing something about them. I know that there are teacher friends who have come up with coloring books for children. I know some teacher friends who are trying to do a lot of agriculture. I know teacher friends who have decided that, you know what, now that school is closed, let us get into brick making. It is not the most ideal, but I know for a fact that it can enable us make ends meet.
But Filbert, you've been in a dogfight with the president around teachers' salaries. And I know that many of the teachers who actually are in your union, the biggest concern for them has also been, how do we get remunerated during this COVID-19? How do you solve a problem like that?
Thank you, Raymond. I think we have gone through challenges in this COVID-19 era, but at the same time, we have learned lessons. Today, when we look at what teachers get as a salary, it is not commensurate to the work they do. Because teachers do a lot without recognition, without appreciation. Where it is literal. And therefore, that's why we have continuously made our case that government should improve the pay for teachers. We are now, as a government, we are signatory to the Sustainable Development Goals. They are 17 in number, but there is specifically SDG 4, which talks about education. And this is talking about inclusive, equitable, quality, and lifelong learning. So the government ought to invest in education. And once you invest in education, you must make sure you improve teachers' welfare for them to play their roles. So when we talk about the remuneration of teachers, we are simply reminding government that countries that have invested in the teachers in education have developed faster than those whose investment in education is very low.
Thank you so much, Filbert. We're going to take a very short break, but when we get back, we continue the conversation on teachers and how well can they be remunerated, how can they advance their careers as they continue to deliver learning during the pandemic. Thank you so much for coming back with us. We are still in the EdTech conversation around teachers and how they've been handling the pandemic, particularly to make sure that there's continuity in learning, but also continuity in their own career progression. I want to come back to you, Rosey. At the start, you mentioned about your own students not being able to access remote learning services. How do you propose that such a problem can be solved?
I think the times now are really difficult because the environment is volatile and ambiguous and uncertain, so everyone is a little confused. Even the teachers are confused as much as the students that we teach are. So I suggest that we take advantage of this new curriculum, Raymond, what I've done during this lockdown is to study this new curriculum, and I believe that it offers us as a country, and as the work of art that teaching is, a great platform to enable our children to innovate and do things with their hands, even when we are not with them. So I feel that if we get into understanding and taking on this new curriculum that is competence-based and encourages children to do things by themselves, I believe that we can gain mileage in ensuring that our children are able to self-learn, and they're able to look out for opportunities in their environments, and they're able to learn from each other.
Shamim, I want to come to you. The pandemic has sort of been a cloud with a silver lining for you, because then it has allowed you to teach the critical learning, critical thinking skills that young people need. But from my own just layman's perspective, that's not stuff that's covered by a syllabus, for example. It's not in the curriculum. So if children learn these skills, they'd still have to come back to the curriculum to be able to get, say, a certificate. How would you address something like that? How do you then make sure that this learning that they're getting on critical thinking then is formalized?
Thank you, Raymond. Now, globally, there's an education crisis. And it is not a crisis brought about by COVID. The COVID crisis is in its own category. We have a crisis of learning where globally there's a conversation that the way children are learning today is not helping them to thrive in their future, in their communities today. I believe that we should really not just know that these things are important and go ahead and actually implement them. This means that if you know that, because the people know that the education we get from our schools is really not enough. It's not to say that schools are not doing a good job, or our curriculum is not good, or the syllabus is not good. It is good, but could be better. So I would first of all encourage us to invest in teachers as the major stakeholders who deliver teaching, for the teachers to understand. Even the deepest teacher in the village, let them get the retooling, the reskilling, the upskilling to understand why those skills are important, why it is important to develop the child in your classrooms, their esteem, their confidence, their communication, their problem-solving skills, their critical thinking skills. And it's from, you don't even have to change the curriculum. You can, when we are being trained to be teachers, there is something called the higher order thinking skills and the low order thinking skills. At the lowest hierarchy, that's where the rote learning happens, the memorization, remembering facts and just reproducing it. Not to say that that is bad. It's not bad. It's the start, but you don't stop there. When you ask the child what is climate and they can tell you what climate is, don't stop there. Now go ahead and ask, for example, so what do you use at home? Or at home we are here, what do we use? We use either firewood or charcoal. So ask now, how does me using this charcoal cause climate change? It's the same question, it's the same topic, but you're flipping it to take it to a higher order thinking level. So now they're going to think, oh, wait, so to get this charcoal or this fuel, the firewood, I cut trees. What does that mean? It affects, it causes deforestation. What does it mean? It affects the environment. What does it mean? It causes climate change. Or ask them, create a project, you know, how can we recycle this plastic to protect the environment? So you're getting them to actually contribute to the solution.
Filbert, we've talked about teachers and their money and their salaries and the conditions in which they've been living in during the pandemic, but we really haven't talked about the teachers' perceptions on what will become of the curriculum once this lockdown on schools is lifted. What are your own thoughts around the curriculum and how it can change now that the pandemic has exposed us and exposed the education systems?
First of all, when we talk about the teacher of the 21st century, we are looking at the facilitator of learning and a learner. In the 21st century, if you are not a learner, then you will not be able to facilitate learning. Lawyers have for some time called themselves learned friends. Now, for us as teachers, we are learning friends. And therefore, the curriculum we are having is loaded. And it was designed according to the school calendar during the normal days. But we are now operating under the new world order, which they have termed as the new normal. We have very little time, and then we have a lot to cover. This simply means we have to adjust the way we have been doing things. Like the saying goes, you cannot do things the same way and expect different results. Therefore, we have to look at the curriculum and we have to look for priorities. And we concentrate on priority areas that will help these learners transit from where they are to the next classes. For those in lower classes, it is very easy because they still have a lot of time, and across the cycle, you can recover them and bring them on board by the time they reach the final class of the cycle. The only classes that will suffer are the classes which are semi-candidate, because for them they don't have a lot of time, they have little time, but they have a lot to cover. And this brings about creativity and innovation of the teachers to make sure that you look at the curriculum you have, the syllabus you have, study it carefully, and somehow summarize it and make sure the learners get what they are supposed to get within that short time.
Thank you so much, Filbert. Now, I really want us to bring this conversation to a close. So, Rosey, I'm going to ask you for your final words on this.
Okay, thank you, Raymond. I would say that as teachers, we are leaders. So we are in an environment, and our learners are in an environment that is uncertain and ambiguous. So there has to be a willingness on our part to unlearn things that we knew before and open ourselves up to taking on new challenges and taking on new opportunities and enabling our learners to see these new opportunities and these new challenges, because we, like this pandemic has shown us that we need to allow our children to be able to learn by themselves, to be able to discover things by themselves, to be able to try and make use of the opportunities that present themselves to them, and be able to actually seek these opportunities. If they're able to access ICT, our children have to be enabled to be able to want to learn from everywhere and everyone, and to keep seeking knowledge. And so as teachers, my last call to teachers as leaders is that we have to create an environment that enables our learners to innovate, and the only way we can create that environment that allows our learners to innovate is if we are open to learning and unlearning.
Thank you so much. So Shamim, your final words on this matter?
The teacher who will be needed in today's world is going to be a teacher who is flexible enough to know the needs of today's children. Maybe you might be in a government school and you're the boss there, you cannot be changed, but I'm telling you the times are changing. Reinvent yourself. Use this time to use technology to learn. That is, if you can access technology. There are so many open sources of learning. Like, we've been guided that we are learning fellows, learning friends. Let's use technology to educate ourselves, to learn about emotional development of children, to learn about the mental health of children. We are nurturers. Beyond giving child knowledge, we are developing their personalities. Let's learn about personal development. Let's learn how to transform our classrooms. When we know that we are going to change our classrooms and we are counting on you to come back to school, let's be flexible in working. Don't abandon the education. Please come back to classrooms. We are counting on you to transform your classrooms. If you have started a business, if you have started a fresh life out there, don't drop that life. Keep it, but keep also teaching. But we shall need a changed teacher in the new normal. What we know, we are going to unlearn it, we are going to relearn, and we are going to be better, because the whole population is trusting us to transform our classrooms. Let's transform ourselves first, then we shall transform our learners.
Thank you so much, Shamim. Filbert, do you have any last words on this?
Yeah, I want to encourage the parents, the guardians, the learners, the teachers. It is not all lost. We still can pursue our goals. We can pursue our dreams, because the moment schools reopen, we shall have that opportunity. Let us not lose hope. We can still go and pursue this. To the teachers, I want to encourage the teachers to innovate. As we go back, let us be mindful of the learners we are going to handle. Let us not think that we have a lot on our plate and we must pump the learners. We shall be making the bad situation worse. Let us take our time, study them, support them, and we shall reach there. I want to encourage you to go and vaccinate, because it is the way to go.
Thank you so much, Filbert. Thank you so much, Shamim. Thank you so much, Rosey, our guests for today. And thank you so much, those of you that have been watching this program. Of course, EDTech Monday hosts once every month. So we always have conversations like this about education and the continuity of education for learners, particularly during this difficult time of a pandemic. Have yourselves a good day.